Ford Cortina. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, the Ford Cortina is a medium-sized family car that was built initially by Ford of Australia in various generations from 1962 to 1983 and was the Australia's best-selling car of the 1970s. The Cortina was produced in 5 generations from 1962 until 1982. This was part of Ford's attempt to unify its Scenic operations. It was replaced in 1982 by the Ford Telstar, Australia, and Mazda Capella, Japan, though Ford New Zealand did import the Australian-made complete knock-down kits of the Sierra estate for local assembly from 1984. Cortinas were also assembled in South Africa until 1984, with a pickup version remaining in production in that country until 1987. The name was inspired by the name of the Italian ski resort Cortina d'Ampezzo, site of the 1956 Winter Olympics. Several Cortinas were driven down the Cortina Olympic bobsled run at that resort, a publicity stunt which Ford called Cortina Autobobbing. The Cortina was also a very popular selling car in Australia and New Zealand throughout its production and continued to be sold new until 1984. Citation needed. New Zealand. The New Zealand Cortina range generally followed that of Australia. Overall complete knock-down assembly ran from 1962 to June 1983 at Ford's Lower Hutt, Seaview plant, New Zealand. A 1983 Cortina estate and assembled. The G4 Cortina range, introduced into local assembly early in 1977, was very similar to that offered in the AU version. A main specification difference, however, was the use of metric instrumentation, and that a two-door sedan was not offered. Engine sizes of 1.6 liters and 2.0 liters were available. The 2.0 liter was a very popular fleet vehicle and the transport of thousands of sales representatives in New Zealand over the years. Additionally, limited imports were made of Australian G4 Cortinas, equipped with both 2.0-liter four-cylinder engines, which featured more emissions control equipment than the Oxforce cars, and the Falcon's 4.1-liter six-cylinder engines. The G5 range was introduced early in 1980, a range that featured 1.6 space, 2.0L, 2.0GL, 2.0 Kia, 2.3 V6 Kia, and wagon variants for the 1.6 space and 2.0L to 2.0, unencumbered by emissions regulations, has 74 kW, 101 PS, 99 HP, at 5200 RPM. In 1982, the 2.0 GL model was discontinued and replaced with a 2.0 S Sport model, and unlike in the African market, it was a model in its own right. The S received a black two-piece front spoiler and a rear spoiler. 2 halogen extra lights were standard, as was a body-colored grille. Most of the chrome trim was blacked out, while the steel wheels received the chrome band. 59, a 2.0 commercial van, was also introduced, essentially a Cortina estate without rear seats, aimed towards fleet buyers. 39, all 2.0-liter models had the option of automatic transmission, and with a 2.3-liter V6, it was the only transmission offered. The 2.3 also received power steering and additional sound deadening material. 39, a 5-speed box, was not available. A unique option offered under guarantee by a dealership, South Auckland Ford, was a turbocharger. The Kia models were equipped similarly to Australian and Korean models, but only the 2.3-liter V6 models featured imported Ford alloy wheels. Ford Rostell steel rims were fitted to all 2.0 GL, Kia, and S models, optionally on the other models. New Zealand Kia models, however, did not feature a steel sliding sunroof, fitted as standard on all Kia models, although some models did feature an aftermarket sunroof. The Cortina was a popular car in New Zealand and Australia, being the most sold car in 7 years with over 100,000 assembled in total. 39. It was missed by many when it ceased production in June 1983, notably after Ford New Zealand had scoured the globe for surplus assembly kits, a number of which came from Busan in South Korea. Station wagons, estate models, remained available until 1984. The Cortina range was finally replaced by the 1983 Ford Telstar range and the 1984 Ford Sierra station wagon. Sales had been dropping in the early 1980s, though, with the average age of buyers in 1981 being between 45 and 54. Quality and fitment were also issues of concern, with a local assembler welcoming the Cortina's Mazda-built replacement. 60. Compared with Australia and many other countries where the Cortina was originally exported, in New Zealand it has a far superior survival rate due to the climate being far drier and more favorable to the preservation of rust-free classic cars. Seeing examples in everyday use, especially New Zealand's rural areas, is not uncommon, and obtaining spare parts to keep them on the roads has yet to become a significant problem. New Zealand has been a popular source of good condition Cortinas to export back to Australia, where rust has condemned the majority. Canada. In Canada, the Cortina was Canada's second most popular imported car during the 1960s, second only to the Volkswagen Beetle. Canada had two and four-door sedans, the higher performance GT sedan, and the deluxe wagon. The Lotus Cortina was also available, albeit in limited numbers. 23. Ford Canada dropped the model in 1970 and was effectively replaced with the introduction of a US-produced 1971 Ford Pinto subcompact. Japan. For Japan, the cars were narrowed by a few millimeters on arrival in the country to fit into a lower tax bracket determined by exterior dimensions, which impose a maximum width of 1,695 millimeters, 66.7 in. 35. The first and third gens of the Cortina was joined by the Ford Capri in Japan and was imported by Kintetsu Motors, an exclusive retailer of Ford products, and it was positioned to compete with the Nissan Cherry and the Mazda All. South Africa. In South Africa, the Cortina range included V6 Essex engine variants in both 2.5-liter and 3.0-liter forms. From July 1971, a locally designed pickup truck version, known in Afrikaans as a Bakkie, was also offered, and this remained in production even after the Cortina was replaced by the Sierra. The Mark V-based Cortina pickup was exported to Fiji in a lengthened wheelbase form as the Ford P100. This pickup was launched in Fiji in 1982, the year that the standard Cortina was being replaced by the Sierra. This version of the P100 was sold until 1988, when Ford divested from South Africa and a Portuguese-built Sierra pickup was introduced in its place, still using the P100 name. 61. The G5 model range, introduced in 1980 for the South African market, included 1.3-liter L, 1980-1982, 1.6-liter L, GL, 1980-1983, 2.0-liter GL, Kia, 1980-1984, 3.0-liter XR6, 1980-1983, 1.6-liter L Estate, 1980-1983, 2.0-liter GL Estate, 1980-1983, 3.0-liter GLS, 1980-1984, 1.6-liter one-tonner, 1980-1985, and 3.0-liter one-tonner, 1980-1985. The XR6 was a sports version that used the Essex V6 and featured body airfoils and sport seats. In 1981, a version called the XR6 Interceptor was released as a homologation special made to compete in production car racing. They featured triple Weber DCNF carburetors, aggressive camshaft, tubular exhaust manifold, suspension revisions, and wider Ronal 13-inch wheels. They produced 118 kW and were only available in red. 250 were produced. 62. Later on, a special edition XR6TF was released to celebrate Team Ford's racing success with the XR6. They were essentially XR6s in exterior and interior Team Ford colors, which were blue and white. In 1983, a special version was created by Simpson Ford to appease the demand for an Interceptor-like Cortina and was sold through Ford dealerships countrywide. It was called the XR6 Exocet and featured a Holly carburetor, aggressive camshaft and tuned exhaust. They came in red with a white lower quarter and did 0-100 km/h, 62 miles per hour in 8.5 seconds with a top speed of 195 km/h, 121 miles per hour. South African G5 models differed slightly from O models, with different wheels, bumpers, and interior trim. The last brand new Cortina was sold in South Africa by mid-1984. It was often the country's top-selling car, being far more popular than the Sierra, Telstar, and Mondio models that followed it. South Korea. The newly established Hyundai Motor Company began assembling the G2 Cortina under license at its Ulsan plant in 1967. The later Hyundai Pony and Stellar, although not directly based on the Cortina/Taunus, still used common componentry, most notably the rear suspension and axle, which were interchangeable with a Ford car. Pakistan. In the early 1960s, Cortinas were assembled by Ali Automobiles in Karachi. 63. The Cortina.